Hello and welcome to StratoCast, a BattleTech podcast for using tools and different resources in your BattleTech game. My name is Stuart, Strategos Level 3, and I help run events for the BattleTech UK Southeast group. And we're going to look at a very specific example today of BattleMech construction, and that's surrounding the War of 3039. It's a great supplement if you can find the hard copy. Shout out to Railpath for Europe because they still have some copies of the hard copy, or grab your PDF from Drive-Thru RPG or Catalyst Games Lab's site. It's a great resource, and the important thing is in 3039 the Federated Commonwealth invades the Draconis Combine, and they do so using new technology, new prototype, kind of new old prototype. So this is technology that's been gained from the Helm memory core and has just begun to be placed into units. So we're going to imagine in this case that the Springbok, which we've been inventing here, and we're going to take the Springbok 3R from 3025 and we're going to create a Springbok 3X, okay, for a prototype version, which is going to contain some prototype upgrades, particularly from the 3039 era. So we're going to start here. We've got our same standard bipedal motive type. We're going to change our rules to experimental. So experimental means that you can add in equipment that normally is only found in books outside of Total Warfare, which is standard, or outside of TAC Ops, which is advanced. So this is rules that are in other rule books. Experimental doesn't necessarily mean really high tech. It means equipment that was not routinely available or is kind of like an intermediate. The place you want to look for most of the experimental tech, you can either look in the War of 3039 book, or you can go to the BattleTech what's the name for the thing? Interstellar Operations Alternate Eras book, which has been made available, which has sections on all different eras, and one of them is in the War of 3039. So War of 3039 gives us access to, for the structure, instead of just standard, we can have Endosteel prototype, which is like Endosteel, but it has 2 more crits. Instead of being 14 crits, it's 16 crits. We can have access to an XL engine, and we can have access to just a standard gyro and a command console if we want. So that gives us access to the Endosteel prototype engine, which is really useful. Now we also have access to freezers. Now freezers are a special type of heatsink where you start with single heatsinks being the number on your engine, so 10, and then the other additional heatsinks are going to be freezers, which are double heat sinks. So this is the only case where you can mix double heat sinks and single heat sinks. Otherwise their rules are pretty much the same. So these freezers here are just prototype double heat sinks. If I go to the criticals here, okay, you can see I've got one freezer here to place. Then for equipment, I'm going to remove the 2 medium lasers, and we've got down here on prototype, I go to energy, we've got prototype, primitive prototype, medium laser, that's not the right one, medium pulse laser recovered prototype. So this is the one from that era, and you can tell that because if you go to the switch table, you can see it says here this was extinct in 3037. It was introduced in 3031 as a prototype, and then it was stopped using in 3037 because it was replaced with medium pulse lasers. So this recovered prototype here is the sort you'd use in the War of 3031. So I'll show you War of 3039. So I'm going to add those in. Okay, and you can also see we've got a small pulse laser there, so we can actually remove the machine gun. So let's remove the machine gun and add the small pulse laser. Other some great equipment in the primitive prototype one. If you have a look in ballistic, you've also got the prototype Ultra AC5, which is prototype Ultra AC5 there. They're named slightly differently, but this is the prototype one. You can see from the era of when it was introduced. And then you've also got the prototype LBX autocannon. So these, again, they're kind of prototypes, but not prototypes. They're reintroduced prototypes, basically, when they were reintroduced after Discovery and Hell Memory Core. And then they ironed out the problems, and then they get moved back up to the full thing. So basically, they tend to just weigh more. So if I look at the LBX prototype, it has one extra critical slot than the LBX. It doesn't weigh actually anymore. The Ultra AC5 compared to the prototype AC5, it's again the same stats except for one more critical space. So my critical space is a 68 out of 78, so I can assign those criticals. Let's put the equipment in the same place. So the SRM6, medium pulse laser, and the heatsink, which will stick over in the right torso over here. And I've still got a jump jet to place here as well. So let's just shift these around. And the SRM6 ammo is going to go in the same thing as the left torso. And we've got another heatsink, another freezer here, which I'll put in the torso. And that one we'll put in the left torso. Oh, no, small pulse laser goes in the head, and that goes in the left torso. So we've used 74 out of 78 slots. We've got our tonnage here is at 34.5 out of 40 because of our saved Endosteel prototype here. So we've got room for another couple of medium pulse lasers, and these are bad, these re-engineered pulse lasers, because when you use them they actually heat up by 1d6 plus the heat, I think. But we're gonna create this, add a couple more, and then we've got enough room for 1.5 tons more armor. And there we go. So let's assign these pulse lasers to the arms. So this mech does have a serious heat problem. It's got a heat of up to 28, and that's only 28 heat if you roll 6 every time you fire the prototype pulse lasers, they can do more heat. So you have to roll on that heat extra. But basically, if they it's an interesting era to play in. The other things that you get in that era are prototype Gauss rifles and prototype ER large lasers. So there aren't really many technical readouts for that era of the prototypes. You have to go in and make them, and you can take things like the Shadowhawk 2H and then upgrade it to like a 2HX or a 2X with an ultra autocannon instead of the AC5 quite easily, and create small kind of like experimental field updates. Keeping with the fluff, this really wouldn't be an experimental update, because you wouldn't necessarily, because it'd have to be constructed from scratch with Endosteel. So this is not a field upgrade. This would be a complete factory upgrade. So if I wanted to make this a field upgrade, I could say this was going to be standard Endosteel instead, and that, interestingly, not standard Endosteel, sorry, standard structure, which gives me 2 more tons here, and I can take those 2 pulse lasers away and say, right, that's the field upgrade. So the field upgrade, it's still got the same standard internal structure as the 3R, because it's a field upgrade. it can still have the same engine because it's a field upgrade. So let's keep the same engine. And now at 43.5 tons. So let's go to the engine here, and we can decrease the heat sinks here to 10 and drop the armor to 6.5. There we go. Let's just shuffle the armor around so we've got more on the center torso, and we've got a small pulse laser there, 2 medium pulse lasers and an SRM 6, and we can even, if we wanted to, add in a case, but case again would be a factory upgrade rather than a field upgrade. So really, this, from the fluff point of view, this would be a field upgrade kit rather than a full factory upgrade, because if you change anything about the engine, the gyro, if you add case, they are all kind of factory upgrades, whereas if you just change the equipment or the armor, that could be done as a field upgrade, and that might be getting more into the lore than you want to, but that's kind of the rationale behind it. So for heat wise, it's a bit weird because it's got 11 heat capacity, 9 from the single heat sinks on the engine and 1 from the freezer double heat sink, so it has a total heat capacity of 11, and again, that's not quite enough for these silly lasers which generate large amounts of heat, but otherwise it's very similar to, it's just an upgraded version of R3R that we had to create a 3039, and I can just put that in brackets here. And save that. So that's how to create upgrades for prototype errors. So prototype errors, for instance, it might be you might play an early clan during Operation Klondike or after Operation Klondike when you've got SLDF equipment that's slowly being introduced to clan. So you can have like an Innisphere prototype and then have clan upgrades. So the kind of like prototype clan Gauss rifles. You could also be playing in Republic of the Sphere time, and then you've got lots of prototype, the RISC Republic Institute of Strategic something, which has lots of experimental equipment. So that gives you an idea of how to do some of these intermediate specialist mechs from prototype errors, and how to introduce those into your game and use them. And I think particularly the War of 3039 is a great era to play in, because you have the Draconis Combine who are given a bunch of Comstar mechs on the sly by Comstar to help them defend, and then you've got both sides which are introducing lots of prototype weaponry and equipment. Right, until next time, I'll probably be the last in this series for mechs for a while, unless anyone's got any special requests. If you do, leave them in the comments. Next time we might take a look at vehicles, and then my favourite for using MegaMek is to create infantry, because infantry are quite tough to do. Till next time, bye.